Honestly, if you guys ever listen to this and you're like, wow, I want to meet them, just go, like, you have a good chance if you go to Balboa, Rick and Roxy, or Westwood, 20% chance you'll see us.
Yeah. I don't think anyone...
That's our public meetups.
Yeah. It honestly is.
Yeah.
It honestly is, yeah.
I actually think about, like, how many people, like, of the people who recognize us and say something, I wonder what the percentage of people who recognize us and don't say something
I'm sure it's really low, the percent that say something.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like,
I thought the percent was high.
No, I think it's low.
No, like I would not say something.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Oh,
actually,
I would totally
that's not true.
say
There's
something.
a few. There's a few people where I would, but there's like other people where I like definitely would recognize them, but I wouldn't say anything because I don't like have anything to say. But I think I'm way more inclined to say something to someone now that we make content.
I agree.
Because like I know how like exciting it is.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Wait, like even like I'm way more likely to engage with things people post on social media. Because I used to just be so passive and it wasn't intentional. I just didn't care about social media.
Yeah.
And now because like we have to care and it's part of the podcast, like when I see someone like wrote a Substack or like
you
made
just
a
like realize
post
what it
that's,
means.
like, clearly for their company, yeah, like I think about it
like in
differently.
like I like comment and like a lot more on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because we have to do it for ourselves.
Yeah.
Dude, it takes a lot of courage to post
feel
on
like
LinkedIn.
You
for
also
me.
realize that like one person actually matters.
Yeah.
Like I would never think that.
The power of one.
Like I remember in all phases. Like I remember like our first supporters. I remember like who out of our friends was super supportive. Like I remember who listened to. Like I remember all those things, and I feel like I always will. I've thought about this.
Wait, that's actually so special.
Yeah, it is. It's like sweet.
Yeah.
It's also like not necessarily
I also
who
remember
you'd
our
expect.
haters.
Yeah, I actually also remember that.
I like the
Wait, we
people
had-
that weren't encouraging.
Yeah.
Wait, who are haters?
We can just cut it out, but like I would say.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Oh, yeah, I guess like the boys in general, like boys that I know, actually respect my opinion a lot more now.
I think people in general ask for my opinion more.
Anyways, on to the episode. So today we have an exciting lineup.
It's really fun.
Should I say welcome back to Get the Check?
Yeah.
Welcome back to Get the Check. I'm Maya.
I'm Anika.
I'm Priya.
And our lineup today is about, first, we're going to go into OpenAI's major blowout week. They hit the news pretty much every day, starting with the Nvidia investment, the Stargate expansion. Also, they released a new product called ChatGPT Pulse, and there are rumors that they're going into ads. They haven't officially confirmed it, but it's very obvious. The next thing we're going to be talking about...
being funny today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's just because of my mental state. Yeah. The next thing we're going to go into is the TikTok ban. The saga is finally over. TikTok is likely not to get banned. It's not officially confirmed, but the US and China have started to reach an agreement about restructuring TikTok US.
Well, Trump did sign it.
He did sign it, but there's still one more step that TikTok has to do to make it fully official. And then finally, we're going to go into Until Labs. They are a Series A startup, and they're developing organ cryopreservation, so meaning you can freeze donor organs. And their long-term goal is to be able to freeze people and literally stop biological time, which is crazy. Like if you've ever watched the movie Passengers, that's what happens there.
Anika learned a new phrase today.
Wait, I didn't know that frozen in time came from the fact that when you're frozen, time stops.
Like
your biological time stops.
Well, like it's in reference to everything. I was like, if you were to freeze chicken, that means you can then have it like a month later and it's still good because it's not going to go bad.
Yeah.
And Anika was like mind blown.
Did everyone know that?
I think so, yeah.
Like, I'm freezing in time.
What did you think it meant?
Wait, how do I explain this? Like, I thought it had to do with, like, I'm freezing in time. Like, I'm not moving.
And she doesn't move. Yeah. She's like, pause for a
Like, if
second.
I'm not moving, I'm, like, frozen. Because when something's in ice, it doesn't move. Wait,
But that's just being frozen.
This makes sense. Okay. Is anyone picking up what I'm putting down? Like, I thought it's like
Maybe the
frozen in
listeners.
time, like like time stops moving, and when you're frozen, you stop moving. But I didn't realize that time literally stops moving at cold temperatures.
Yeah.
Isn't that what all the sci-fi movies are about?
I don't watch
Yeah.
sci-fi movies.
It's also, even if you've watched like medical dramas, like it is like a real thing people do. Like even today, like not to this extent, obviously, but
No, like clearly it's a real thing. This is what I didn't know.
Like there's a classic Grey's Anatomy scene where the like doctor goes, "She's not dead if she's not warm and dead."
okay, we need to move on.
No, because it's like literally like
Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about OpenAI, and we're going to split it into two sections. The first is going to be more on like the infrastructure side of things, and then the second is going to be on product updates. So to quickly go over the three infrastructure headlines that we saw last week. The first is that Nvidia took a $100 billion investment in OpenAI to support data center build out. There was the Stargate expansion with OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank announcing 5 new data center sites. And then there was also a CoreWeave deal, which kind of came in at the end of the week. It's a $6.5 billion deal with OpenAI to basically provide these AI data centers in the interim. I had a few questions on like how all of them play together and like where they fit into the puzzle, because I feel like there's so many moving parts, and I was like, who's responsible for what? And so just before we get into the headlines, I think the way that it made sense to me was that Nvidia is the GPU layer. So it's like the GPUs and CPUs and the chips and actual compute that they need. And then Oracle and like the data center side of it is more of the real estate end, where like they're actually building the data centers, they're hooking up to the power lines, they're doing all of that.
like running the operations, hiring the staff as well.
Yeah, and like that's where most of the jobs are being created also.
Yeah.
And so those two combined are what makes up the long-term vision. And then CoreWeave comes in as more of an interim player of, we've talked about them before on the pod, and they like lease space basically, or like lease these GPUs. And so in the interim, until they get all these operations up and running, they're going to be using CoreWeave in the interim. And that's also why their deal is so much less money than like everything else. So I think that was just helpful framing for me before we dive into the headlines.
If the question you're asking is like why such a huge data center build out, we're already reaching like capacity as it stands right now. Things are getting really expensive. And if we believe that if OpenAI continues to grow at the rate they are growing, and other competitors like Anthropic as well, we will not have the data center capacity to let people use the products. Specifically, the $100 billion deal with Nvidia. Nvidia will invest $100 billion progressively as each gigawatt of capacity comes online. So a gigawatt is just basically a way to measure how much power is coming out of a data center.
Yeah, it's like the amount of power being used.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So a gigawatt is basically a way to measure how much power is being used from a data center, and most data centers are around 0.3 to 0.5.
Yeah. And for context on like how much a gigawatt even is, like 1 gigawatt of power is 750,000 homes. I saw this stat where it was basically like it's the equivalent of peak consumption of the entire city of San Francisco at one time. So like at any given point. So a gigawatt is already a
ton
lot.
of
like
power.
It's a ton of power.
So they're starting with an initial investment of $10 billion for the first gigawatt, and they're hoping to get to 10 gigawatts by the end of the investment. And in exchange, OpenAI is giving 2% of an equity stake. This money will then be used to buy or lease, not buy actually, lease the Nvidia GPUs to be able to train their next generation of models. And leasing is supposed to be cheaper because then OpenAI does not have to invest in GPUs that become too out of date for like their next set of models. Because right now they're investing in like the latest GPUs, and then those GPUs are not as powerful for the next set of models when they go from training like GPT-3 to 4 to 5. They're constantly buying new GPUs, and these GPUs are very useful for other people, for other projects, and so they're holding on to all this old stock that they don't actually need. So leasing seems to be like a better play for them.
Yeah, and it basically guarantees millions of Nvidia's Vera Rubin chips being deployed, which is like their newest chip, to your point. And I feel like the way I think about it is they basically just traded chips for equity.
Yeah. I think you were saying
The math on it?
Yeah.
I saw the Substack that broke down the math on it. It was basically every 1 gigawatt of capacity enables OpenAI to deploy around 8,000 superclusters, which is composed of those like 72 Blackwell GPUs and then 36 Grace CPUs. And each of those costs $3 million. So per 1 gigawatt, NVIDIA is making $25 billion in revenue. So that would be 250 across 10 gigawatts, and assuming a 61% operating margin, that's 150 billion that they are supposedly going to be making in operating profit.
Oh, in profit.
Okay. It would be 150 in profit, 250 in revenue.
So they basically just booked themselves $150 billion in profit.
Yeah.
Which is kind of insane.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also that's just given the current state of things, because I feel like they, over the next however many years, they're going to develop new GPUs and CPUs, and I'm sure increase the price as well. So
yeah,
they'll probably, I would say what I predict is going to happen is that they'll increase the price of it, but it'll decrease the amount you need because each one will be more powerful. Efficient. And so I think that'll probably be and so it'll probably all roughly even out to about what that math is.
And an investment this big by Nvidia in OpenAI to then go around and just buy more Nvidia products obviously has people talking about the AI bubble, which makes sense because now Nvidia and OpenAI's success are more tied to each other. Like bearish on one ends up being more bearish on the other. And also I feel like more so on TikTok, I would say I saw people just like being like, you're kind of just like exchanging money from the same two hands because like they're paying and then OpenAI is paying them back. And while I get how when you read the headline it seems like this, it actually doesn't make me personally bearish. And the reason for that is because I think OpenAI, like the 100 billion that Nvidia is giving OpenAI is actually using to get something that's useful towards their business and their productivity. And I was thinking a lot about the time that we talked about Palantir's SPAC investments, because like back in I think 2020 and 2021 Palantir was struggling with their commercial revenue, and so they basically spent like $10 million plus investing in these SPACs, and part of the deal of that investment was that the SPAC had to turn around and buy their software, which is a similar setup to this, but the key difference was those SPACs didn't actually need Palantir software, and like the companies were bad, so then when the SPACs crashed, it actually like was part of what led to Palantir's stock crash at that time. It was in like 2022 I think. And so I was thinking about that and how like, yes, sometimes these circular deals are bad and bearish and a sign that a company is just trying to book revenue, but I don't agree that that's what's happening here.
I think what's happening here is like clearly these are the top competitors in the industry, and like in order for OpenAI to keep making progress, they need the best GPUs, and that only Nvidia has it. So it's like it's almost out of necessity for these guys to do this. The one concern I have is that like how big of an investment this is and how much of this backs the entire market. So if you like look at it by the numbers, $100 billion represents 3% of Nvidia's market cap, and Nvidia already represents 7% of the S&P. And so when you're talking about SPACs, like sure, yeah, that didn't go really well and that affected one stock. But then when you're talking about this in like kind of the top tech stock that's propping up the entire market, that's where people get really concerned and really scared. And it's no different than like Nvidia failing or, you know, OpenAI failing and the whole market crumbling down. But it is something to know on like the size of the investment. We have never seen like one company invest into another company at this magnitude. Like 2%.
No, I can't even like comprehend what $100 billion is.
Yeah, like 2% is a huge chunk of OpenAI. Yeah. Like no one owns that. We're seeing xAI, Meta, OpenAI, Google DeepMind, Microsoft, Amazon. Anthropic is coupled with Amazon there. They're all adding tons of gigawatts to the grid. The US added 56 in 2024, and basically OpenAI wants to add an equivalent amount in the next year themselves, not to mention like all the other US companies. And so I was looking at like what people believe, and I think by 2030 there's an estimated 5 to 7 trillion needed in capital expenditure to meet the AI compute demand, with 60% going to technology developers like Nvidia, 25% going to energizers, which is like the utility companies, and then 15% going to builders, which is like real estate and construction firms. But yeah,
can our grid even support this?
I have no clue. I'm not a...
No, I know. I'm just thinking about it from like our conversation that we had about base power and like trying to understand the grid better. And it sounded like it was falling apart.
Yeah, I don't know if this completely answers your question, but I think a big part of how they selected where these data centers go had to do with like the support that
makes sense.
Like they could get from like electricity, the grid, as well as like how fast the land grants could happen. So I think there was like a big operational issue in figuring out where to do it. But my understanding is the places they picked, the grid can't support it. Can't support it.
Yeah. The other thing I think about when we look at like infrastructure build out this large is how it changes like the political map. And I don't really have an answer here, but like a lot of the reason why some candidates have, wait, you were telling me this, and like
Was it related to military?
yeah, where like the build out of like military bases like control where the votes are going.
Yeah.
And like similarly, like the build out of data centers and like having those data centers prop up the entire economies of these towns, how is that going to affect like also politics?
Yeah, that is interesting.
But you don't really see data centers really tied to a specific candidate. Like maybe you could say Trump because Trump propped up Stargate. But I don't see it as like super correlated. Like it feels like Trump just like slapped his name on it, but it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, I was just thinking about that. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that is a good point.
I would say like big tech is not like super correlated to the red or the left or the right now.
I think like power grid access was a big part of this deal. And so who knows if that like trades off with other people's access to power. And so beyond that, it's like you're using a lot of resources of a certain area. And so if anyone politically wants to go against that and be like, oh, it's not in our best interest to have a data center build out, then whatever politician like was in power at the time and resulted in like whatever, I think it's like 20,000 jobs.
Yeah, it's 25,000
jobs is like, it's really tough to go against that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess leads into like the
I was
next
gonna say,
headline.
this entire conversation is basically about the
Stargate,
actual data center build out.
Yeah.
Which is the second headline of the 5 new data centers by OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. And basically with these data centers, it'll bring Stargate to 10 gigawatts of the total 10 that they ultimately have planned. So with these new data centers, we'll now have 7 gigawatts of planned capacity. So it puts them on the right path.
Yeah, and they in their statement they said that this puts us on a clear path to securing the full 500 billion and 10 gigawatt commitment we announced in January. So like they basically are trying to signal to the market that they will use the full 500 million, even though it's not planned yet.
Billion.
Yeah, billion.
They will definitely use the full 500 billion.
Yeah, because I remember when that headline first came out, like everyone was like, oh, like that amount, who's going to use that amount? And then they came out like 6 months ago being like, yep, we're at 400, so we will get to 500.
Yeah. And basically what Oracle's role in all of this is, because that was another question I had, is like, what is Oracle actually doing? They are responsible for like building and running the physical data center. So this is what they already do. They're hooking into the power grid, they're negotiating with utilities for contracts, and then they're operating the Oracle cloud infrastructure layer, which is like OCI. And that is basically just infrastructure as a service, like the same as Azure, AWS, like all of those things. They do the networking, the load balancing, the storage, and the orchestration. And OCI itself was the reason that like Oracle stock popped so much a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and the reason why this is beneficial for OpenAI is that they don't need to take on all the risk of like managing the land and like having basically this entire other arm of their business they can focus on reaching AGI.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to me that Oracle was who they ended up partnering with. And I was like, why Oracle instead of one of the players that would traditionally get these like hyperscale deals? And it's literally just because like, who are you going to go to? Like, you need a neutral player. You can't go to AWS because, like you said, they're partnered with Anthropic. Azure, I feel like they just have like a weird situation going on with Microsoft, and Microsoft competes with them on a lot of AI products. And so
GCP
GCP
has Google behind them.
Like, yeah,
they're
I mean, it's
on
like
their
Gemini.
Gemini.
Yeah, I mean, it could never be Google.
Yeah.
And so then it's like the neutral player, or like the player that seems further behind, and the more legacy player ends up like winning in this scenario.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Oracle capitalized on those partnerships well.
So well.
Yeah.
So well.
Like I look back and I'm like, why didn't we invest in Oracle stock? Like it was very clear.
It was so clear.
From all the headlines.
It was so clear.
And like the market map seemed so clear on like how they were going
yeah.
to structure. I guess like for a while it seemed like Microsoft and OpenAI would be like closely like partnering.
Yeah.
But then Satya and like Sama had some issues over time.
I feel like I'm always just really hesitant to put money in a legacy tech company.
No, totally.
Because I don't have like a single legacy tech company in my entire portfolio.
Yeah. It's also, I guess you have to think about who Trump has relationships with.
Yeah.
Because all of these are also government. So then it's like if he has partnerships with Larry Ellison, then it's
Yeah.
that also plays into all of this. Then the last one is CoreWeave. We talked about CoreWeave before. They basically just like lease GPU space and provide like the cloud layer for any of these players to use. And so they had a $6.5 billion deal, and this is going to be used for OpenAI to train and serve these models just in the interim. So it's the same thing that they're ultimately going to be doing, partnering with Oracle and Nvidia. It's just in the interim they're using CoreWeave. And CoreWeave IPO'd earlier this year, so that was like big news for them. Basically 72% of their revenue comes from Microsoft alone. And so this is like good diversification for them as well. I don't think it'll be like a long-standing partnership or anything like that, but it was definitely of note with all the headlines that came out last week.
Yeah, cool. And that kind of concludes our section of like the infrastructure build out of the story for OpenAI. The second part of it is like very product focused. So recently OpenAI came out with ChatGPT Pulse, which allows pro users to deliver like personalized briefings every morning. So basically this like agent works in the background and it like thinks about like what you talked about with ChatGPT like the day before, and then like tries to make further suggestions. So let's say like I'm talking about like what's like, oh, like I'm really hungry for ice cream, and then Salt and Straw like drops a new flavor, right? Then it might be like, oh, Salt and Straw's like new flavor of the month like dropped this week or something like that. Like it'll think about what your conversations are. And then you can also add connectors. You can add like your email, or you can add your calendar, and it's supposed to suggest things based on your email and calendar. So if it sees on your calendar tomorrow you're meeting someone for dinner, here are some dinner suggestions. Like it's like the general idea, but initial reactions is that it's actually not as personalized as people would have wanted it. But
Yeah, I want to briefly quote Sam Altman's announcement of it, just because I think he had like a lot of Easter eggs that then come up later. And he also used like capital letters at the beginning of sentences, which he never does in his tweet. So everyone was like, oh, this is like going to be super important. But he said, I won't read like the whole thing, but basically he said, today we're launching my favorite feature of ChatGPT so far called Pulse. It works for you overnight. It keeps thinking about your interests, your data, your chats more. Every morning you get a set of stuff you might be interested in. You could say, I'd like to go to Bora Bora someday, or my kid is 6 months old and I'm interested in developmental milestones, and in the future you might get useful updates. Think about it as a super competent personal assistant. This is what I believe is the future of ChatGPT, a shift from being all reactive to being significantly proactive and extremely personalized. I thought the examples that he chose to give out of like any example in the entire world that you could give are interesting, because it's kind of just like straight bait for like recommending 10 different hotels or like flights.
Yeah.
Like it's very travel agent.
Yeah. And I feel like the examples that you gave, Maya, too, are like very ad-like, but that's not actually what it's doing right now. Like right now, I think one of the examples it gave on like the OpenAI blog post about it was gardening, and it was like, these are things you can do to like improve your gardening, but it's more like techniques, I would say. It's not recommending like dinner spots or like a hotel spot or something like that right now, but it's definitely where it's going.
Yeah.
I saw like mixed, like to your point of people saying it's not that personalized, I feel like I saw mixed reviews when I looked. But I really
they were
wanted
honestly
to
pretty
use
positive.
Oh, really? I saw some negative ones.
I thought
I
it
read the
was
one that I saw
mixed.
was-
Like I feel like I went through it and it's like, I think it's mixed, but that actually makes me bullish, because I think that anytime something gets released, people want to say it's bad.
That's true.
Because it's like,
I thought it was like mixed because the OpenAI employees were propping it up and like the non-OpenAI employees were not.
that's definitely possible. Like I feel like I didn't look into
Yeah.
exactly who. Sometimes on like, I feel like it's also hard on X to tell like where people work, because some of the accounts are like anon accounts.
I also feel like OpenAI like releases products really fast in like a certain direction just to try to see like if people like it, and then I guess they choose to like develop on it later or not. Like Codex, they released, and then they like, I don't know, I feel like they just like left it. I feel like there hasn't been really that many like useful updates, and now like Cursor's background agents are like much better. But like Codex had the first version of like a background agent, or like not the first version because like Devin did that first, but yeah, it was interesting. I feel like they do these like product launches and then they kind of like drop them, and then like they don't come back to them. Like back in the day, there used to be like a ChatGPT store. Like people don't really use it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think that fast iteration in the world we're in, especially with AI, is valuable, and it's like one approach that you can take.
I guess like what I'm getting at more is that I think people want to see what proactive AI looks like, and how and like what flavor people like it in. And I think we saw that obviously in the coding space. And now we're starting to see it more in like the general purpose, like product space of consumer AI. And so yeah, it makes sense that they're experimenting with it.
I would honestly use, I mean,
I'm actually really excited for the, like, every time I use ChatGPT, this is like what I want. Like, I feel like if I could have pitched them a product, this is like similar to what I would pitch.
I'm honestly like not excited about it. I feel like Perplexity kind of does a similar thing, or it tries to suggest you
actually.
like news articles. And I used Perplexity Pro like very like religiously, and I feel like it does suggest me like okay news articles, but it's like not the best. Like I would say like 20% of the time it suggests me an article that I haven't heard of, which I guess is still hard because I'm like obviously a tech podcaster. Like we're like tech influencers. No, not really. Tech commenter.
Quotes when you say tech podcaster.
And like so we're like always on X and like reading stuff. But yeah, I think it's just going to be hard for them to nail it on the head. Like I feel like it'll be neat, but I don't know if it'll actually be productive.
Wait, I've actually always wanted something like this. I think one of the deltas in my life that AI could definitely help with is like there's a lot of things going on. Because the way I think about it, it's like there's podcasts, there's work, there's like friends / like things we do for fun. But then within each of those categories, there's like other things. Like with the podcast, there's like people I want to reach out to about certain things. But then there's like research and there's like all these different like things. And I feel like having a thought partner that would like proactively bring certain things up, like even things that I forget, like I know there's things about the podcast that like slip my mind that I think about once. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even like a to-do list. Like I don't think anyone has made a really good to-do list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I think that could be cool. And then I think the other thing could be like if there's an area I'm interested in, like I feel like not that many people have written in depth about what our approach should be to China with AI. Like people will be like either like, oh, we should give them chips and everything and like it's fine and we should all be friends, or they're like we shouldn't give them anything. But I haven't like read a ton of pieces where I'm like this is super smart. So I'm like like it would be cool if it was like, oh, I found this like niche I don't know article or
No, I see that.
or like kept tabs on certain topics even past me remembering.
I just think it wouldn't, like I feel like, okay, how do you explain it? Like I feel like the way I like consume content is like very specific to myself, and I don't know if it would know that.
Like what? Like what's unique?
But
about
is
the
it?
way
I guess
you-
that's like the whole point of what they're trying to say. Like I guess they're trying to say they will because it's all like a push into personalization.
Exactly.
But we won't know.
We won't know if it actually I've never seen any like personalized feature really work. So I'm like so hesitant.
in a productive way.
Yeah.
Yeah, social media is really the only one that's like figuring out how to nail it.
Yeah.
I feel like no one else has ever, because I feel like, okay, there was like a period of time where it made me think of Morning Brew, where I was like, I would read it every morning when it would come out. And then at some point it just like fell off and I stopped ever looking at it. But I feel like in a productive way, I've never had something to consistently look at.
Yeah.
It is interesting because like to your point, like I agree. I've never felt like AI has been personalized much. But I did see Sam Altman had this other tweet where he was like, the reason why some of these things like Pulse is only going to be available to Pro is because we want to see what we can do if we compute max. And like that's what they're saying is the differentiation between this and what they've done in the past. And they're going to throw a bunch of compute at it. And I guess it's kind of like the logical, it's kind of like connected to the whole like $100 billion buyout, right? Because like they're doing that and then they have like all of these features coming out that are going to be way more compute intensive. So like obviously I don't know if like throwing more compute at it is going to work. But I think their approach does seem to be actually different.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think so. Like the way I think about it is like if I use GPT on like a daily basis, and sure, like it knows things about me, but like it hasn't really still fully gotten my tone.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
and
so like I think there's things like that I'm like I don't know I don't know how far we can really push personalization in memory because we haven't really solved it at like an algorithmic layer. We've only solved it as like a here, just put more context tokens into this like feed, and that's where I get confused.
Yeah, where I get confused is like you've always explained it that way to me, and like I guess to me I don't understand because like there's not a user-friendly way to build context right now either. Like I don't think a lot of people are like I don't build context on my GPT.
Like you're not creating like custom GPTs.
Yeah, and I don't think like that many, it's like clearly not that easy or that successful. Otherwise it'd be like more common thing to do. Like,
I
feel
think
like
it is
companies
relatively
do it.
easy to do. I just don't think a lot of people do it.
Like I was gonna say, like you could just export all of the Slack messages you ever sent and like the style in which you like send messages. Like if you could take my iMessage, for example, and like just send only my texts that I've sent out,
Yeah.
you would know the way I talk.
Mm-hmm.
But like getting that data is like very hard. And this kind of leads me to my next point is that like ChatGPT, like the reason why people still don't believe Apple's like in the race, or why all these people or Google's like in the AI race, is because they are sitting on moats, like on personal data moats that OpenAI doesn't have access to. And so OpenAI needs a way to build that, and that's like part of Pulse is like having a reason to like connect your shit. Right? Like
Yeah.
they've always had connectors, but now because Pulse is going to do something in the background, like you're like, okay, yeah, take my data, like
That
see what
makes
you can
sense.
do with
No,
it.
I'm happy to
right?
give them my data,
Yeah.
honestly.
And so that's like the way OpenAI is trying to get around the data moat that everyone else has. And I'm
that
like,
makes a lot of sense.
I'm like pretty interested to see if they can like actually connect your email and then see all the emails that you send out, and then start using the way you send your emails out as like a way to develop your tone.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So I think there's like a lot they can do. I just don't know if like they'll execute on it well. But yeah.
I think like in whatever 5 years when we like look back and we're like, yeah, we reached AGI, I think proactive AI will actually end up being a really important benchmark. Like when people start to feel it's proactive at 2027, when it outlines like, it basically outlines AI going from being like how we know it now to malicious. And the key part in that is like AI starts having its own suggestions, which is like basically something that is possible once it's able to be proactive.
Yeah.
And an example in that is like the AI starts like giving suggestions to politicians and things like that. And the only difference between like now and that is that like our AI doesn't have the ability to be proactive.
Yeah, because you're not, well, you can make a proactive AI yourself. So for example, you can have like a workflow and build an agent that like where you give it like some level of system prompting of like, look at my last like day of history and then make suggestions or whatever. And you can have that run on a workflow basis like every morning. And I think that's like simply the difference between what we have today and like what proactive AI is. So I think the question is like, does like once it like responds, then is like another AI talking to the proactive AI to try to get it to be like more enriched. So like is another AI, so is it, I was kind of actually thinking like, how did they build this? So I was like, obviously you start with a workflow, like every morning, look at the last like day of messages and suggest and like categorize them. And then based on these categories, suggest something, right? But like you have to have like another AI telling that AI to do it. Does that make sense? Or like prompting that AI to do it. So I was thinking like, is it like when we're talking about proactive AI, is that like us talking about two AIs encouraging each other to do something? It probably is like
multi-agent.
Yeah.
Like there probably are just like a bunch of agents talking to each other. It's probably more than two. I mean, we don't know how they built it out, obviously, but I feel like they must, because they also have to have a way to categorize your messages.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can categorize your messages based on like if you give any amount of text and you're like, just create 5 categories. I'm sure AI does that.
But
now.
you can also have like a multi-agent approach to doing that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So
like if something like hits a category, then this specific category agent like does this.
And then like you have like a special agent that like knows that category really well and does like some more analysis on it or whatever it might be. And so like maybe you have like 10 categories, but then you have agents in all those 10 categories that go and do like a deep research. I don't know. Like there's so many, like we have no idea how the architecture of that looks.
Yeah.
I feel like all of this just tees itself up for ads because like this level of personalization, like what do we use it for in our world today? It's literally just to like give ads to people. And it's funny because I saw so many jokes about it on X of like, this is just the path that everyone ends up back on, like no matter what you do.
Yeah. And the background there with OpenAI and ads is 10 months ago, the CFO, Sarah Fryer, said that they were weighing an ads business model and they wanted to be really thoughtful about where ads would appear. And then historically, Sam Altman has also made comments about it where he once basically said that ads are like unsettling to him, especially in the context of AI. And he didn't give a reason for why ads are unsettling to him, especially in the context of AI. But I imagine it's because of how personalized AI is. And that's like what makes the power of ads potentially unsettling to him. Like, those were his words. And so I find it in a way ironic that it is now being launched in tandem with personalization.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it's not being launched.
We don't know.
Or like we think it's
we
being
think
launched.
it's, yeah.
But like the reason everyone thinks it's being launched is like because of the personalization feature.
Yeah.
But like,
Well, they're definitely doing it. They're definitely doing it, but I feel like it's not like an official launch.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say that's like one bucket of questions, which is like how will ads appear in OpenAI's product suite, and like it seems like it's Pulse. The second question I have is like, how is OpenAI going to build an ads manager platform? I think there's like two ways you can go about it. One is like you can build your own ads manager platform and then invite all the brands in to like run campaigns, but that's like going to take a lot of time for like marketers to move over. Maybe it's fast, but I don't know. I feel like campaigns are like really intense. Like Google Ads Manager is like so confusing. Like I can barely understand it. And then I think like a second way is that like you have like maybe they like partner with like Microsoft and use Microsoft's ad manager platform, and then you can like place ads on GPT, and so like they tack onto that. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and they're hiring for a growth paid marketing platform engineer, which is like part of how this ad rumor mill started. And it doesn't answer Maya's question of if they're going to go like that more of a native route or use like something like Microsoft. But the job description is to develop internal tools for an ad platform integration. I guess integration does make it sound like they're using a third party, not doing it natively. But then it also says like campaign management and real-time attribution. And obviously like they could have a plan to eventually do it in-house.
Yeah. I just think like ads managers and like thousands of people at Google right now. Like I'm sure like
Really? Why is it so difficult?
because you have to do like attribution, right?
I don't know why it's so difficult.
I'm pretty sure it's like really, really hard.
Because of attribution.
Yeah. Like Meta also has its whole like, ads manager platform too.
No, that makes sense. It is confusing.
Meta Ads Manager I have used. I've never used Google's, but we used to use Meta's in like college for our consulting club.
Yeah,
I've used Meta's too.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's like easy to build out. So I was like actually pretty I was
but
like
they did hire so then they also like previously hired Fiji Simo, hopefully I said that right, but she was the former CEO of Instacart and she built out their ads product.
Yeah.
And so I feel like she could build it out.
So DoorDash and Instacart, they have a very simplified version where you can like you basically like buy ads, but you don't buy it like it gets deducted from your payouts. Like as a store, you can be like, yeah, I want to like buy like this sponsored spot, but it's like very simple because like the attribution is directly then to the platform that you're on because that's where you're selling.
Yeah.
So then the payout is it's like the cost of the ad is deducted from your payout, and it's like something like 20% of the revenue attributed that comes through that ad will be paid towards that ad to pay for that.
That makes sense.
So it's like a rev share kind of policy.
Yeah.
So it's like very simple versus I think like Google Store or Google Shopping is like a lot more complex. I mean, they could also just start with some like key partnerships and like,
but then
and not have like small brands like necessarily like not have small brands on there. Like only like the biggest of big brands, like Luxottica, for example, has like all of the like eyewear brands, right? And they just like work with like a couple of key brand managers, like maybe 10, to see if it even works and like ads even works in Pulse.
Yeah.
And then invest in the ad platform.
I think there's a whole nother layer of questions too with like if ads are going to be in Pulse or in that type of a format. Like they also had like shopping before where like if you asked a shopping question, they'd have like different links to like Walmart and Target pop up. So like you could put ads in that too. And in that type of a format, I'm curious how personalized they can get because Facebook used to have like super personalized ads back in the day. And then they, because of like privacy ruling and other things, like changed the way they do ads to be based on like broad buckets, like women that's like 20 to 25 years old. And so if Meta is only allowed to do buckets that broad, I imagine OpenAI also would only be allowed to do buckets that broad. And in that case, like how could Pulse even be that customized of an ad?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But then maybe like because it's keywords that you're searching for, it's different because you're like giving your data. It's like that's my theory on how OpenAI can differentiate their ads from Meta and Instagram and stuff.
Yeah. It would just be like more of a Google approach, basically.
Yeah.
Because Google runs very personalized ads.
I think the one other question is like why there's such a big push to profitability or like increasing revenue right now. And I think it's because they've been losing like billions a year. And this year they're actually predicted to be profitable, I believe, like make around $4 billion. But I think that because in May they became a public benefit corporation, so they owe like their shareholders as well, that they're more likely to like move into these types of monetization routes.
Yeah I know. I don't understand the way they like break up the revenue, because I'm sure like all the investments are put under like the nonprofit, and then it like makes the numbers look good. So I don't know exactly what they do, but it makes sense that they would get into ads, because monetization is clearly a push that they've been making.
Yeah.
Cool. So now we're going to move on to our next story, which is about the TikTok ban. So it's officially over. US and China have finally reached an agreement for restructuring TikTok's US operations. So Oracle, Silver Lake, and an Abu Dhabi investment fund will be the main investors, and then ByteDance will be reduced to 20% of TikTok US, and they'll basically be separate companies.
Yeah. There was basically like the timeline on like when all of this happened was it started back in 2020. They basically were like really worried about China's access to American like citizens, like being able to like potentially influence things through the algorithm, and also just have all the data. And so that's when the conversation originally started. And then fast forward to 2024, that was when Congress actually passed a law. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was so funny. Like the name of it is so funny. It's Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's actually so funny. But it was just like specifically targeted at TikTok and like Chinese based companies, basically. And so ever since 2024, there's been this back and forth of like, is TikTok going to get banned? Is it not going to get banned? There's a 90-day extension.
Yeah. And Trump just will release executive orders extending their ability to not get banned.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the next order is extended till I think December 15th or 16th, something like that, where like the actual final like divestiture must happen in time. And so the US TikTok will be divided into two companies. And then ByteDance is expected to earn 50% of the new venture's profits. The US company will serve as like the back-end operation and handle all US data and the US algorithm, which was like a main part of the ban in the first place, because they wanted the data to be controlled by a US company, so that like China couldn't launch some coup on us, and then or like whatever. And then also like they wanted the algorithm to also be controlled by the US, so that China couldn't like kind of like brainwash our brains into like supporting.
I was being brainwashed.
Yeah.
No, like I want to go to China. That city looks so
just,
awesome.
Like, send me like ads of Chinese cities.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because they look sick. Like they're actually so cool.
Yeah. And then the second company, which is still ByteDance, will continue to control the revenue generating business operations such as like e-commerce and advertising.
Yeah.
So like TikTok Shop and TikTok Ads will still be managed by ByteDance as a company. But yeah, and the new company, the new US portion will only be valued at 14 billion, which like was a big part of the story.
I know.
Because it's so
crazy.
low.
It's so low. Yeah. And I think like a lot of the reasons that people are saying, well, I guess going back to what you were talking about earlier, but then also why it's potentially valued at 14 billion is because the algorithm is being leased to the US. We're not actually like getting control of the algorithm. And so a lot of the value of TikTok is basically just in their algorithm and the ability to keep people on the platform. And so the fact that ByteDance is leasing this to the US, and then the US can retrain the algorithm based on data, and like Oracle will help with all of that stuff, but we're not actually owning a copy of it, makes it just like way more valuable of a business.
Yeah. The other part of the story is that so TikTok US made $16 billion in 2023. Obviously that has grown since then. And so if you're thinking about growth, but then 50% of those profits have to go, like 50% of that has to go to ByteDance.
Yeah.
Then you're sitting around at 8 billion. And maybe that's grown to like maybe like 10 to 12 billion in the last couple of years. And so you're at like a 1.5x multiple. That compared to like,
why is the multiple so low?
That's like the whole reason, like the algorithm.
Yeah.
And so like that compared to Snapchat, where Snapchat is at 2.5.
Yeah.
And like no one uses Snapchat anymore. And then there's Pinterest, which is at 6x, and Roblox, which is at 23x. Roblox is like more of an outlier here because like they're like young, new, blah blah blah. But actually TikTok should be in that like range, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it should definitely be more than what it is.
I feel like 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always just use a revenue multiple of 10.
ByteDance as a whole in 2023 was valued at 330 billion. So it's honestly crazy that it's at 14 billion. I feel like the algorithm exclusion is one big piece of it. And then the other one is just the fact that it's like a forced sale and the fact that there was no open bidding process. Maya and I were talking about this earlier today, but it's like honestly insane that the government was basically just like handpicking you, and you're going to just have TikTok at whatever it's at.
Yeah, like normally in divestitures, you still have an open bidding process.
Totally.
And you don't like pick the investors. So I thought that is really, really strange. And we can get into that later. But before I wanted to talk about like M2, which is basically their like internal code name for TikTok US. So the idea is that like TikTok is currently building a separate app for TikTok US, and then they're going to migrate everyone over to that.
And it was kind of like always their fallback plan. Like they started this a while ago because they were like, we know at some point we're going to need this.
Yeah.
Time is ticking.
The time is ticking. So my guess is like the time is ticking on waiting on that being ready. Because I think once that's ready, then all the like deal structure can also get moving as well.
Yeah. And people are really concerned about that, especially creators, because basically if you're only using US data now within like the TikTok US platform, it's way less of a global platform. Like I feel like even recently when all the stuff in Nepal happened, I feel like I was getting so many videos about all of that, even when I was in the US, and you get like a lot of global content. And so creators are worried about losing global reach, and then like the content variety can shrink, and also the fact that like the government is like kind of has a say in like what's being shown and what's data it's being trained on. All of these things are like a concern with this like new M2 TikTok US.
Yeah.
But we don't know yet like if it'll only be US users on the app, right?
Yeah, I don't think it will be.
It's just like the way that the algorithm gets retrained from just use US data.
Yeah.
And so that is like, they're concerned about what is the new algorithm once it's trained on a smaller subset of the data. And like personally, I was like kind of sad about the Australian fashion brands.
I'm sure they'll still be around.
I know. But I like them. But yeah, we can go into like kind of the dynamic of like how much the government had a say in this divestiture.
Yeah, so like I was mentioning earlier, because it was a forced sale, I feel like usually, like we've seen this with Google, for example, where there'll be some sort of case, usually theirs is a monopoly. This was like, we were worried about the Chinese, but whatever it is, like the government finds a way to like force a sale. And they basically just like usually tell them you have to go sell this by this date. And that's like it. That's the government's involvement in it. Versus in this case, the government has kind of been there for every step, like approving or not approving things. And in this case, they even like hand selected Oracle, specific VC firms, and like even individual people that were just people that were close to the administration, and tapped on them to be like, do you want to be a part of this deal or not?
Yeah. I thought that was really crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it just like hurts innovation. I don't know, like just like the lack of openness in the market for that. And then the second part of it is that like it's very unclear what control they have over the algorithm, because the idea is that Oracle will maintain the algorithm and then with oversight from the government, but like it's not clear what that oversight is. And that's like what TikTok sued the government back on, was like the whole basis that like your First Amendment rights, where you should be allowed to like post anything and say anything, and that was infringing on that. And I think this is where it's confusing of like, if the government has oversight on this algorithm, like are they infringing on our First Amendment rights? Like,
Yeah.
what is it like to have like a government social media controlled platform? And like, what does that world look like if like that's where most of the creators are on today?
Yeah. And they're kind of like, it's under the guise of it all being a security measure.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's hard to argue against a national security argument.
Yeah. And like, obviously in like the doomsday scenario, you're like, oh, government just like feeds us whatever they want us to think about. And like whoever's the most recently elected administration and whatever their interests are is what is getting fed into the public. And I don't think we're there yet, but I think it just calls for like, hey, let's put some like real guidelines and laws into place of like what the government is and isn't allowed to do, and not just like air quote have oversight. on it, you know?
I mean, it's like not an easy thing to solve. Like when we talked about Meta in the past, like when Meta was left to do whatever they wanted with the algorithm and their content moderation, like things aren't great either.
Yeah.
And so there's a
balancing act for it.
Yeah.
For sure. But I don't trust like Trump, I guess, because Trump has also like specifically said like, oh, the reason why I'm like saving TikTok is like it's part of the reason why I won my campaigns.
Yeah.
And so like that's
insane.
yeah, and like that's where it gets really scary is when those two like are together. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fear monger and be like Trump is doing this out of his own interest, blah 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 blah, like, and he's gonna bring down the world. Like I'm not gonna say that. I'm just gonna say it like the lines are really blurred right now.
The lines are super blurred.
Yeah.
Like the government getting involved in like tech M&A is blurring a line. Like them getting involved in content moderation is blurring a line. Like I think all the reasons that TikTok needed to separate from China and have a U.S. entity were honestly valid.
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue is like how many instances of free speech violations the administration has, and that's what makes it concerning. And then when you think about how Meta is owned by Zuck, who's friends with Trump, X is owned by Elon, who is like best friends with Trump. Now Oracle is like owns TikTok, which like they're also connected to the Trump administration.
Well, they're all connected to like anyone in a position.
Yeah, but like
power.
TikTok before wasn't.
But it's like, is it
And,
better
like,
in the hands of the Chinese or is it better in the hands of
Like I honestly
like,
don't
the worst of two
feel like
evils.
that.
Like, yeah.
Like I actually
I don't
don't feel like as pressed as other people did about China, just because I don't know. I think that there's like some amount of a balance of forces that you want when it comes to how content is dissipated. Like I don't know that I would want every platform I get news or content on all being controlled by like the same essentially group of people.
Yeah.
Because that is like unique to the current administration. Like in the previous administration, sure, there was like a relationship between Meta and the government, but it was very like, yes, there was lobbying, but there's also a lot of tension and like it was a back and forth. It wasn't just like a...
Yeah. No, I agree with you from like a getting content perspective, but I feel like on the data side of it, the amount of data they were able to collect on Americans is like scary to me.
Yeah.
Like it's not about like them giving me information, it's about like the information they can get about me.
Yeah.
Like even something as simple as like they literally can just like track every move I've ever made for the last like 5 years. Like that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To have like literally a foreign adversary have that. But like it's not like to me specifically, it's like the aggregate information
like
of like
they'd have
having
it
that
on
on like
anyone,
every
yeah.
single person and like the patterns that tells you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we have it on everyone else.
Yeah.
Except
Yeah.
I guess not China because they don't.
Yeah, because and that's exactly why like China doesn't let
Yeah.
them use it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is interesting because we've like always seen that as like a sign of a regressive society.
But yeah, congratulations to all the TikTok creators. What?
Like for living another day.
Well, like yeah, like I feel like if your like income is like
Her like wrap up.
I can actually talk about this now. So wait, can I talk about this? So like we launched our buy now
your
pay
TikTok
later
shop
product.
deal.
Yeah, and we were gonna have a deal with TikTok, and then we weren't, and now we are.
Oh.
Because of TikTok US not going down, so it's exciting.
Wait, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
That is exciting.
But I don't know if I
Wait,
can put
so
that
like TikTok shop will have buy now, pay later.
in. It's actually sellers who buy ads on TikTok can now buy now pay later. The ads are buying.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because we're like SMB buy now pay later, not like consumer. But yeah.
We might need to start using that.
No, literally, I was like, oh, I can be a customer of my own product.
Like, you actually can.
Or like you guys can like look at it. Cool. Last story of the day. Moving on. So we're gonna be talking. I don't want to do this intro. You can do it.
Okay, so this is our Get the Check segment where we talk about if Until Labs would get our check this week. So they basically just raised a $58 million Series A led by Founders Fund, and they're developing an organ cryopreservation product, which can basically just preserve organ donors and then keep it for like an infinite amount of time. They haven't said like exactly how much time they're planning to keep it for, but in theory, an infinite amount of time. And then they can be used when they're needed. And the long-term vision is to be able to freeze biological time, starting with organs and ultimately working their way to like the entire human body.
I was going to say, I always love when we have a biotech segment.
It's really
It is
interesting.
cool,
It's really
yeah.
cool to research.
It really switches things up.
I agree.
Yeah.
Her mood just brightened.
This company would get my check.
They would not get my check, but
Wait,
but not-
really?
Wait, really?
it's not that I don't like them. I just like don't.
You don't think
No,
it'll
no,
actually
it's like, okay, I try to stay intellectually honest with myself on get the check, and instead of making it be like, do I like the company, it's like, would I put my own money into it? And like I would not. Like if I had the option between like adding like 10K to my portfolio or like 10K into their Series A, I'd put it in my portfolio.
Okay, that's valid.
And my reasoning for that is just like, I think it's a long shot, and I don't think they're that far along.
10K means like more to us now than it will in like 10 years.
Yeah.
And I feel like in 10 years is like when we'll be like more serious like angel investors, because like we are going to be them, because we're starting a fund.
This episode has been a roller coaster.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I'd put even 1K in.
I'd put a K in. Wait, I also just think that what they're doing is like so cool and
Okay.
like good for society. Okay, let's talk about what they're doing. So basically, the reason why this is important and we need like organ cryopreservation is because right now thousands of organs are discarded every year because there's a really short viability window for these organs. So like heart and lungs is 4 to 6 hours, liver is 8 to 12 hours, and kidney is 24 to 36 hours. And I saw this source that from 2023 said that 28,000 organs were discarded due to systemic inefficiencies. So that like primarily are delays in allocation and transportation. And so they're basically trying to solve this problem statement by freezing these organs and then recovering them and like basically thawing them out when you want to use it. The same way you do with like food.
Yeah. And currently it's a huge logistical nightmare to get organs to people, because I was listening to the founder talk about it, and she's basically like, a medical surgeon gets like an actual call that's like, there's an organ available because like someone died, and so then you have to take a private plane to the organ that's like, I guess oftentimes coordinated by the surgeon themselves or herself.
Yeah.
And then the organ gets like returned, and sometimes patients are waiting in hospitals for really long periods of time. Like it sounded like months, like just waiting to see if they like get the call.
Dude, Anika's like never watched a medical TV show in her
Yeah.
life, and it like really shows.
But it's
Yeah,
so
I was
funny
gonna
that
say, like,
I'm in
I didn't know this.
Yeah, I was gonna say like anyone that's watched like any medical TV
Oh,
show
this
knows
is like
this.
all like major news to me.
I was like 20 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, like I got this shit down.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh.
the doctors travel with the organs, and there's like all these things about how like, oh well, we're gonna reroute this organ to this patient instead because like they have this better chance of living and they're closer in like distance,
yeah,
and like
proximity. Yeah, it's like crazy.
there's like a whole
But-
scoring system on like how high you're on the list. Like I can give you a debrief.
I'm like so queasy with medical things, and it's so funny because I'm in healthcare.
Wait, I actually
like,
think you would like Grey's Anatomy. You should give it a shot.
I've like seen an episode. Like I'm the person that watches like the lawyer one, like the lawyer
I
shows.
watched those too.
But what was I gonna say? So
She
okay,
was
I
just
guess
dropping what she learned that everybody already knows.
I guess that was all a big waste of time. What I was gonna say is that it connects to Blade, because we did Blade as a recent get the check, and they basically divested their commercial business, which takes like rich people from Manhattan to the Hamptons, but they kept their medical business, which are basically the choppers that are taking the organs, which like for me was a huge connection moment because I didn't know that was happening. And so I was like, oh, that makes sense, like that's what Blade does. So basically this company is like effectively trying to get rid of Blade's market.
Oh, it's also really expensive, this whole process.
Yeah.
Like we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more.
Yeah.
Which like most patients can't afford, and so then you're also already cutting the population by who can afford it, or insurance to afford it. Their long-term vision, I think, is to like actually literally freeze people in time, which we were talking about in the beginning of the episode. But it was actually quite scary. In their like problem statement, they were saying like, what if like you could take a patient who has like cystic fibrosis from the 1950s and they would have died in like months, and then you just like unfroze them today and now they actually have like a chance at life, which like I don't know if I had a disease like I would want to be frozen for like my entire life to just like only wake up when my disease is like cured.
And have no one that you know in your life.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
like
I
a
just-
weird concept.
But you're not like any older.
You're not any older.
Yeah.
And like and also you could do it at the time when you're a baby, so you have like no idea it happened. You could even like not even tell the people that it happened if you don't want to like mess with them. Or you could be like, yeah, you're adopted, but you're adopted from like 1950s parents. Like, you know what I mean? You know, like when someone's like adopted and like they learn that they're adopted and you're like, oh, what do you mean you're not my mom and dad? It's like, yeah, your mom and dad like died 60 years ago. Okay, sorry. Okay, never mind.
No, yeah, I get it.
I'm
Like,
like,
I get what
you're
you're saying.
I get what you're
I feel like we should go into the science. So the science behind this is cryopreservation, which is a process that can take cells, tissues, organs, like Priya said, and cool them to a very low temperature. So it basically freezes them in time, which is how I discovered that saying and the origins of it. But you basically need the organ to be at negative 130 degrees Celsius, and that's when time stops. But you have to get there quickly. Like if you just think about freezing something in your freezer today, like it takes hours, and that's a problem because that process of it freezing creates ice, and ice forming basically breaks the tissue around the ice. And you also, a lot of the cryoprotectants that we've had in the past, which is basically like what you use to protect the tissue and stuff, is toxic to humans.
Mm-hmm.
So
The CPAs, right?
Yeah.
They're like cryoprotective agents.
Yeah, so you can't use them to currently freeze humans. So this company is trying to create a non-toxic version, and the cryoprotectant basically replaces your blood.
Yeah,
Which
that
is
makes
kind of
sense.
crazy.
Yeah, because that's like they've done that with humans by like bringing them down to a really low temperature and then putting cold saline into your body instead of blood, and then that basically like freezes you for long enough that
They can do surgery.
They can
right?
do surgery,
Yeah, like
yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
during heart surgery. Yeah, and so like Priya is saying, there are examples in life right now where this type of technology is implemented. Like for example, in heart surgery, it's done for a short period of time.
well, the biggest one is IVF because like basically like
that's
cryopreservation in general like is a thing in like modern medicine, like specifically for IVF and for stem cell therapy. And to Anika's point of what she was saying earlier, like this is the exact same process that we went through with like egg freezing in the past as well. In 1972, it was like the first time there was a successful human embryo frozen basically. But the issue back then was that it wasn't a scalable process because it took too long to cool. And so then when they brought it back and like de-thawed it, the chances of it surviving were like basically close to zero. And so it wasn't really scalable. Then in 2010, they moved to like this vitrification, which is like the super fast cooling that you're talking about. And the same thing that they're trying to do for Until Labs as well, which is ultra rapid freezing, and that's when it became scalable. So now the survival rate of egg freezing is like 90%, and it's super normal to have like IVF babies. Like we see around 100,000 babies born every single year, and so we basically, it's kind of like a solved problem in like fertility preservation. And so now we're trying to take that same thing and apply it
To organs.
Yeah.
And in 2023, a study at the University of Minnesota, shout out, demonstrated doing the freezing and de-thawing, and the de-thawing is a critical part of it, for a rat kidney. And so
A little rat.
making everyone a little bullish. Until Labs has done it for a part of a rat brain.
Yeah, and they were able to preserve electrical activity, and that's like what they call their first milestone. And they have this roadmap of they want to do that, and they're going to go into preclinical validation of donor organ cryopreservation. And then after they're able to like preserve human organs, then they're going to try actually placing those human organs in a human, and then they're going to move back to rats to do the whole body.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, I thought that they're going to try to preserve donor organs, and then they're going to go to the rat. Oh, does donor organ cryopreservation mean it goes in the new human too?
That's the step right after.
That's a step right after,
Yeah,
which is
and
like,
then it's
yes.
yeah.
So they're basically just working on humans for like a while now.
Yeah, because like I feel like the medical hibernation stuff is like far out.
Yeah.
And so like they probably will be working on.
Do you think there's like a rat team working on that like in parallel, or do you think it's like step by step?
Well, they have to solve the organ issue before they can move on to more of the body.
You know, they're also hiring for neuroscientists, and they asked her why, and she didn't say.
Well, so I think the fact that they were able to do the rodent neural tissue makes them confident that they can do the entire body. Because I think the thing that they were concerned about is the brain, from what I understand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so they needed that to know if they can actually go towards the entire milestone of the whole body. And then I think they need the donor organs to actually create a like profitable business. That's why I see.
Yeah. That totally
That's why
makes
the
sense.
roadmap.
You know, this whole thing reminds me of Neuralink, where like did you think that too?
Yeah.
Because it's like you have a short-term medical breakthrough that's so beneficial. Like with Neuralink, you're taking people paralyzed for their entire life and like giving them a new life and the ability to interact with their surroundings. With this, you're taking people that don't have access to organs and are dying and are making it like a way easier, cheaper process. And then they have these like insane long-term goals.
Yeah.
But like no one can really say anything about them. Because
they're
the
doing so
short-term
much
goals
good.
are so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the medical space.
Would you guys do it?
Like, what do you mean, would you do it?
Yeah.
Like, would you like freeze yourself? Just
Oh, with my entire body.
I thought you were like organs. I was like,
Yeah, I know. I was like so
No,
confused.
no.
Um,
Like, would you go into medical hibernation?
Probably not. Like, you can just take me, honestly.
like when you do that, it's not just like one loved one dying. It's like every loved one dying.
I would consider doing it in a disease-related situation.
That is the situation that they're looking at, though. Like, they're basically like, if there's a cure in 2 years from now.
Yeah, that's what they're looking at.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, they're not going to say, like, once they have the technology, they'll start selling it. Like, they're not going to say,
You can
what
only use it.
incentive do they have to argue more use cases for something that doesn't exist?
Yeah. Also, like, rich people, I feel like, have been obsessed with this idea of longevity recently. Especially Jeff Bezos, who's been investing in Altos Labs, which is also kind of like one of those companies, biotech company focused on reversing diseases. And it's like, not that all of these things aren't good. Like, I think it's important to have companies working on these problems, and we need to like make medical advancements. But it is interesting because I feel like it's been like this like revived phenomenon.
Yeah.
There's so many questions that come up in the case of technology like this actually existing, like who consents to someone getting frozen, who consents to them getting unfrozen, like how does it work? Like let's say you have a disease and they think there might be a cure in a year and you get frozen and like a year goes by and it turns out there's going to be like 2 more years in the trial. It's like, do you go by like what your husband says? Do you go by what you wrote before you were frozen? There's so many questions and so many potential complications, but I think we're very far from having to actually answer those questions. And hopefully in the short term, they have some breakthroughs that help with like the organ things. Because I also think that there's actually like a very big step between being able to have like a human liver survive for like another 30 hours versus a whole human frozen in time.
Yeah.
Just because like you have to replace theoretically all of the blood in you, right?
You just take all the blood out, you replace it with like saline or whatever you need to put in, and then you have like blood donors. You can pump blood back into your body. Like that part's not hard.
From other people?
Never watched a medical show.
I know. Anika's like so confused.
Is that why people say they want like young people's blood?
Oh,
Okay. Well,
Okay. Well, okay, guys, we have to go. Our camera just turned off.
just turned off. Well, because the battery died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Bye.